I'm your host, Shrikant Gopalan. Welcome to the Journey with Philosophy. Philosophy is a fascinating avenue for asking fundamental questions about existence, knowledge, values, reason, and life itself. It's a journey to understand ourselves and the world around us. The primary goal of philosophy isn't necessarily to find one single correct answer to all these big questions. Many of these questions don't have a simple final answer. In this video, we'll explore etymology or the roots of philosophy, compare and contrast science, philosophy, and religion, understand branches within philosophy and the classifications used in philosophy. Let's begin our journey with the etymology of the word philosophy. The word itself comes from two Greek words, philo meaning love and sophia meaning wisdom. Philosophy literally means the love of wisdom. The earliest philosophers weren't seen as wise geniuses who had all the answers. Instead, they were pursuers of wisdom. Right from the start, philosophy wasn't about memorizing facts. It was about the active and passionate journey of asking big questions. Let's look at the same concept from other cultures. Persian, the word shanakt, and it means knowledge, insight, or recognition. It's interesting because this word also appears in modern-day Hindi, where shanakt means to identify. So you can clearly see the connection between gaining knowledge about something and being able to identify it. In Chinese, the word for philosophy, pronounced as shui shui, this term combines two characters, shui meaning wisdom and shui means study. Put them together, shui shui gives you a very clear and direct definition, the study of wisdom. In India, the traditional term for philosophy is darshana, derived from the ancient Sanskrit root drusha, which means to see or to experience. Darshana literally translates to viewpoint, perspective, or vision. This beautifully frames philosophy not just as an act of thinking, but as a direct way of seeing or experiencing reality. Philosophy is considered as a mother of all sciences. A subject, until it matures as a science, tends to be seen as part of philosophy. Let's compare and contrast science, philosophy, and religion. Each one has a unique place in our society, but it's important to see that they have different goals and very different ways of getting there. How do they work? Science uses empirical method. This means it works through systematic observation, testing ideas or hypotheses with experiments and relying on measurement and verification. It's all about what you can prove and test. Philosophy uses rational inquiry, involves logic, reason, and clear arguments to explore ideas. Philosophers often use thought experiments to analyze concepts without a physical lab. It's all about thinking clearly and logically. Religion, on the other hand, relies on revelation and faith. It looks to sacred texts, traditions, and a deep faith in a higher reality to provide answers about life's meaning, morality, and our ultimate destiny. It's all about belief and divine truth. The big questions they ask. Science asks, how does the universe work? It wants to understand the mechanics of everything. Philosophy, on the other hand, asks, why are we here? What is truth? What is right versus wrong? It tackles the fundamental questions of existence and value. Religion seeks what is our ultimate purpose and our relationship to the divine. Seeks to understand our place in a spiritual sense. So what do they focus on? Science focuses on the physical and observable universe. It includes everything from subatomic particles to galaxies to how living things function. If you can measure it, science studies it. Philosophy targets abstract concepts, things like existence, knowledge, values, and reason. Religion explores the relationship between humanity and a sacred or divine reality. It looks at the ultimate meaning, morality, and purpose through lens of faith. So, the kinds of answers each one provides. Science aims for an objective and verifiable answers, like theories and laws. A key part of scientific answer is that it can be tested and even potentially proven false. Philosophy provides reasoned arguments and new ways of thinking. The answers aren't provable in a lab, but are judged on how logical, coherent, and powerful their explanations are. Religion provides absolute truths that are considered divinely revealed and are accepted through faith. These truths are seen as unchanging and are meant to be believed, not scientifically tested. So, what's the end goal? The goal of science is to build a body of knowledge that lets us predict and understand the natural world. The goal of philosophy is to achieve wisdom and understanding, to question the basic assumptions of all other fields, including science itself. The goal of religion is to help people achieve spiritual fulfillment, live in harmony with the divine will, and ultimately attain a state like salvation or enlightenment. So, how is philosophy organized? Think of it like a tree with several main branches, each asking a different set of fundamental questions. What's really important to understand is that these branches are all interconnected. A philosopher's idea about reality will shape their ideas about knowledge, and those two things together will shape their ideas about how we should live. The one tool that connects all these branches is logic, the art of good reasoning. Let's take a look at these main branches. Metaphysics, the study of reality. Metaphysics is the branch that asks the biggest questions. What is real? What is existence? What is the universe made of? Aristotle called it first philosophy because it's the ultimate principles that govern everything. It's not about one specific thing, but about the nature of being itself. So, what does metaphysics ask? What truly exists and what is it like? A huge part of this is ontology, a study of being and reality. Metaphysics tackles huge ideas like causality, space, time, and the very nature of existence. Epistemology, the theory of knowledge. Epistemology is just about knowledge. The name comes from the Greek words for knowledge, episteme, and reason, logos. It tries to answer some tricky questions about what we know. So, what does epistemology ask? What does it actually mean to know something? How do we get the knowledge in the first place? And how can we be sure about what we know? It also explores the difference between just knowing a bunch of facts and having a deep understanding of a subject. Ethics, the study of moral conduct. Ethics is the most practical of the branches. It's all about morality, what's right and wrong, what's good and bad. It tries to give us a framework for how we should live our lives and what makes a person good. So, what does ethics deal with? How should we act? What is virtuous life? What principles should guide us? It explores different approaches like focusing on our duties and rules, looking at the consequences of our actions, and defining what it means to be a virtuous person. Aesthetics, the philosophy of beauty and art. It looks at why we find certain things beautiful and what makes art art. The questions aesthetics asks is, what is art? What makes a piece of art successful or powerful? Is beauty an objective fact, or is it just in the eyes of the beholder? Logic, the principles of correct reasoning. Logic is the toolbox of philosophy, systematic study of good reasoning and valid arguments. Essentially, logic teaches us how to tell the difference between a strong argument and a weak one by looking at its structure. Two parts to it. Formal logic is like the math of arguments. It uses symbols to check if an argument is structurally sound, regardless of the topic. Informal logic, on the other hand, focuses on arguments we use in everyday language. It's about critical thinking and spotting fallacies, common errors in reasoning. Political philosophy is a quest for a just society. Here we ask, how should we live together as a society? It deals with big ideas like justice, liberty, rights, and the government. Some of the key questions political philosophy asks is, what makes a society just? What rights and freedoms should a government protect? What do citizens owe their government? And when is it okay to challenge authority? So how does it all fit together? The most important takeaway is that these branches don't exist in a vacuum. They all depend on each other. A philosopher's ideas in one branch directly impact their ideas in another. A couple of examples. Imagine a philosopher believes that the only physical material world is real. That's a metaphysical view. This would likely lead them to believe that we can only gain knowledge through our physical senses. Epistemological view. This combination could then lead to an ethical system where good means maximizing physical pleasure and minimizing pain. Now let's take an opposite view. Imagine a philosopher believes in a non-material world of perfect ideas, like Plato did. This would mean they believe true knowledge is gained not through the senses, but through reason, epistemology. This would then lead to an ethical system where living a good life means trying to align your actions with those perfect non-physical ideals. So to really understand philosophy, one must appreciate how these branches are all woven together to create a complete and coherent worldview. When philosophers talk about reality, they don't all agree. There have been some huge long-running debates about what reality is actually made of. Let's look at a couple of biggest ones. The debate number one: how many things make up reality? Monism. Everything is just one thing. This is the idea that everything in the universe boils down to just one ultimate substance. For example, the ancient Greek philosopher Thales famously said that everything was ultimately made of water. Dualism, everything is two things. This is the view that reality is made of two fundamental principles that can't be reduced to each other. The most famous example is from Rene Descartes, who said reality is split between the mind, the thinking stuff, and body, the physical stuff. We also see this in the Sankhya school of Indian philosophy, which discusses how ultimate reality is made up of the duality of consciousness, Purusha, and matter, Prakriti. This usually splits up as matter and consciousness. Simply put, if it is perceptible by our senses and occupies space, it is matter. If it doesn't occupy space, no volume, not perceptible by our senses, it comes under consciousness. Pluralism is everything is many things. This view says that the reality is made up of different kinds of substances or principles. Think of Plato's idea of an infinite number of perfect forms, or Democritus's theory that everything is made of countless different atoms. Debate number 2. What is reality made of, mind or matter? This is the next debate about the number of things, but about the nature of the stuff that makes up a reality. Materialism is the idea that everything that exists is ultimately physical. It's made of matter and energy. If you can't touch it or measure it, it's not the fundamental reality. This is the most common in modern science. Materials like iron, wood, water, air, fire are examples of materialism. The argument here is, if human being is matter, how did life emerge from matter? How and where does thought arise from? How do we feel emotions as matter? Spiritualism or idealism is the opposite view. Here the reality is fundamentally mental, spiritual, or made of ideas. A classic example is Plato's theory that the real world is a realm of perfect ideas, and our physical world is a shadow of imperfect reflection of it. The argument here is, if human beings are consciousness only, how does one explain the body as bones, muscle, skin? How do we have a physical existence that occupies space perceptible by senses? Neutral is a position that postulates humans have limited faculties to understand ultimate reality. We can understand only matter, consciousness. The divine has infinite attributes and qualities, so we may in effect be inadequate to truly and thoroughly understand the nature of reality. Dualism now discusses the nature of our existence as equally matter and consciousness. The body as matter influences the mind, consciousness, and similarly, consciousness as emotions can influence the experience of our body. The physical body and mind are equally interacting and influencing each other. Now let's shift gears from the reality to knowledge. One of the oldest debates here is about the main source of knowledge. Where does it come from? Debate number 1. Where does knowledge come from? Reason or experience? Rationalism is a postulation that knowledge comes from reason. This is the view that most important knowledge comes from reason. Rationalists believe we can figure things out just by thinking without needing to rely on our senses. Math is a great example. You don't need to do a physical experiment to know that 2 plus 2 is 4. You know it through logic. Empiricism, knowledge from experience. This is the idea that all our knowledge comes from sensory experience. What we see, hear, touch, taste, smell. Empiricists believe we are born with a blank slate mind, and our experiences are what write knowledge on it. Beyond that main debate, there are a few other important perspectives to consider. Skepticism. Can we really know anything? This is the view that we should doubt whether we have any certain knowledge at all. Skeptics argue that since our senses can be fooled and our reasoning can be flawed, we can never be 100% sure about anything. Agnosticism. Some things are just unknowable. This is the position that things are simply unknowable. An agnostic would say that certain big questions like whether God exists are fundamentally beyond what human mind can answer. Stoicism. Focus on what you can control. This is a practical philosophy for living a good life. The main idea here is to find happiness by using reason and accepting the things you can't change. It's all about building inner strength and resilience, focusing on what we can control and accepting what we cannot. Nihilism. Life has no built-in meaning. Here is a view that life has no inherent meaning, purpose, or intrinsic value. It suggests that our core beliefs about truth, morality, and knowledge have no real foundation. In this section, we bring together all these diverse classifications under a simple rendering. At the top level, we have the classification based on number of principles: monism, dualism, pluralism, and under each, we have further classification based on the nature of reality. I hope this content was beneficial to you. Thank you for watching this video. Please do like, share your comments, subscribe for more content like this.